Alright, what's up guys? Operation Pour. So today we're actually going to be going through CQB. This is viewer request by one of my favorite viewers. Consider him a good and dear friend actually. We're in Tactical Assault VR, but this is for real life guerrilla warfare. This is just the simplest way that I can explain what I'm needing to explain. And throughout this footage, after this, there's going to be, after recording, there's going to be more commentary on tactics and stuff. CQB, but as the defending force against an assaulting force. Bonjour, bienvenue à la maison. Je m'appelle Operation Pour. Today we're going to break down a subject that doesn't get nearly enough attention: close quarters combat, or close quarters battle, otherwise known as CQB, but from the defender's perspective. Most of the books, classes, and training programs out there talk about how to be the aggressor or the assaulter, how to breach a room, how to clear a stairwell, how to stack on a door. But history shows us something else. Defenders have their own rulebook and playbook, and when used well, that playbook can bleed, delay, and even stop much larger attacking forces in their tracks, such as it is much easier to defend something than to assault and take something or an objective. In this episode, we will talk about how to fight back inside buildings and in urban terrain out to about 150 meters, U.S. Army doctrine. Anything within 150 meters is close quarters battle. We'll go over little known techniques, the use of deception, the psychology of defense, and yes, the importance of traps and IEDs, or IED style devices, not in terms of how to make them, but in terms of what role they play in defensive warfare. So let's get into it. The nature of defensive CQB. When you are the defender in a close quarters fight, you have two natural advantages: initiative and prepared ground. The attacker has to expose themselves to even get inside the fight. They are walking into the unknown under stress with a clock ticking in their head. You, on the other hand, already know the angles, the fields of fire, and the choke points. But here's the key. Defensive CQB isn't about holding a perfect firing position until you are eventually overwhelmed. It's about slowing the enemy down, forcing mistakes, and shaping the fight so they lose momentum and morale. History proves this point. Think about the Battle of Stalingrad in World War II. Soviet defenders turned whole city blocks into defensive strongholds. They weren't trying to beat the Germans head on in every room. They were bleeding them with ambushes, interlocking fire, and hidden positions throughout the city and in the rubble. The German doctrine of speed and shock was neutralized by defenders who knew the terrain and used it to their advantage. The lesson: the defender doesn't need to win every exchange. They need to make the attacker pay for every single step forward. Inside buildings, angles, deception, and survival. Now let's get into defending from inside a structure. A common mistake defenders make is hiding in the most obvious corners, the so-called fatal funnels that everybody knows so much about. The fatal funnels of doorways and hallways. Everyone expects someone to be there. Smart defenders instead position themselves in offset angles, places where attackers can immediately aim without exposing more of their body. Think of stairwells, halfway down hallways with improvised barricades, or firing through a secondary room into a kill zone. Firing through walls is completely viable. One little known technique is engaging through walls and ceilings. If you understand the construction material, Whether it's wood, plaster, or thin metal, you can use bullets to suppress or even hit attackers before they've even entered your line of sight. Defenders in Fallujah use this to great effect, firing through thin walls to stop Marines mid-stack. They would wipe out entire squads of Marines by shooting through the walls. Sound is another weapon that also complements this. Something as simple as broken glass in the hallways, cans, or gravel spread across the hallway can give you early warning of movement. This is crude, but it works. In Chechnya, fighters would even hang glass bottles on strings in stairwells. Any disturbance, and you would hear it instantly and know where the enemy is. And don't forget deception. A window with a dummy silhouette in front of it can soak up enemy fire, while the real defender waits 2 windows down in shadow. The attacker spends ammunition and focus on the wrong target, giving you the advantage. So setting up like fake dummies and stuff like that is also completely viable. To draw fire so you can get a good sneaky shot in. Inside a building, the principle is simple. Never be where they expect and always force them to expose more than you do. Defending in the urban environment. Now let's step outside into the streets, alleys, and courtyards of urban areas. Urban defense is all about layers. What you do whatsoever. So like if there's somebody behind this door, you don't want one man trying to hold a street by himself. Instead, defenders set up mutually supported positions, 2 or more shooters working angles that crossfire over a choke point. Even small teams can lock down whole avenues if they got overlapping fire. Another underutilized principle, verticality. Attackers often scan left and right or right to left, but forget to scan up and down. That means defenders who position themselves in basements, rooftops, or even second-story shadows can catch attackers by surprise. Shooting upward through floor grates or downward from roof lines create angles attackers are rarely prepared for. Grozny in the 1990s is a textbook example. Chechen fighters used vertical ambushes constantly, firing down from rooftops while other teams fired from below. Russian troops caught in between were shredded by enfilade fire. It wasn't about numbers, it was about geometry. Working those angles. You hear in CQB all the time, working angles, guys. You gotta work those angles. Be smart in your approach. Plan the trap. And here's something subtle, window deception. Instead of firing from a well-lit window, fire from 2 feet back inside the room from the street. It's much harder to spot muzzle flashes, and a blackened out room becomes a protective shield, letting defenders dominate the street without revealing themselves. Setting good urban hide sites and stuff like that is a great skill to have if you're shooting from outside the building. You're shooting from inside the building, but you're shooting at targets outside the building. The rule in urban defense is this: force attackers into kill zones, make them guess where the next shot is coming from, and never fight fair. So using like stacked up cars, bulldozers, school buses, like parked sideways in the street, like funneling them and purposely sending them where you want them to go. That's a big part of urban warfare. The role of traps and IED style devices. Now let's talk about a piece of the defensive puzzle that often gets ignored in CQB theory: traps. When I say traps or IED style devices, I'm not talking about blueprints or construction. I'm just talking about the concept. I'm not legally responsible for what you do. Follow all local, state, federal laws. The point of traps isn't just to injure or kill. It's to slow, disrupt, and terrify. Imagine being the attacker and moving into a building where every step could set off a noisemaker, a fall hazard, or worse, explosives. Even if nothing actually goes off, the fear of it forces you to move slower, check every doorway, and hesitate at every turn. That hesitation is a golden time for defenders. Traps also allow defenders to extend their control beyond where they physically are. A simple blocked stairwell, a rigged noise device, or an improvised barricade means attackers can't just walk in. They have to work for every single meter, every single inch that they gain, typically making tons of noise. In theory, these devices act as psychological force multipliers more than anything else. They put the attacker on the defensive mentality, which flips the script of CQB. Instead of storming forward with confidence, they're now creeping, doubting, and wasting time, second-guessing themselves. And as history shows, hesitation in CQB is deadly. The mental edge. Finally, let's talk about the most important weapon in defense, CQB, the mind. When you're defending, it's tempting to think your job is to hold ground at all costs. But in guerrilla warfare, the real goal is survival, delay, and impact, not martyrdom. That means patience, discipline, and controlled aggression. Don't fire the first shot unless it gives you a real advantage. Don't get sucked into an even fight. And don't forget that the defender sets the tempo. Attackers only move as fast as defenders allow them to. If you look at the most successful urban defenses in history, whether it's Stalingrad, Granzi, or even modern-day insurgencies, they all relied on defenders who understood one thing. You don't beat the enemy by being stronger. You beat them by being smarter, even if you are vastly outnumbered. So that wraps up today's episode on CQB from the defender's perspective. If you take one lesson away from this, let it be this. Attackers may have better weapons or more numbers and bigger backing, but defenders own the ground by using deception, traps, angles, and psychology. A small force can turn a simple building or a city block into a nightmare for anyone trying to take it. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. God bless you guys. Peace out. Woo! See, that dude had every single advantage. The dude had every single advantage. Because he was in prone. And usually when you clear a room, you're like up here. But he was down on the floor. I'm really thankful the lights were on. Otherwise, I probably would have been destroyed.